Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the first two sets of Fleer Ultra basketball. This is 92-93 and 93-94. Fleer had an interesting situation in the early 90s because in 1986 they took over a market that had basically been abandoned by Topps. Nobody was making basketball cards. I mean, Star kind of was, but basically nobody was really making serious cards of basketball, so they jumped in, and for a number of years it was only them, till Hoops showed up in 1989 and Skybox in 1990. So in 1991, when the premium card craze hit and baseball and football had a big run of different premium sets that showed up, in basketball, Fleer didn't really see the market as strong enough for that. Now, Upper Deck jumped in at that time, and basically there was one new set every single year for a couple of years, and Upper Deck was that set in 1991. But unfortunately for Fleer, because they didn't put out their Ultra set, they didn't kind of stake their claim on basketball, and so Upper Deck was able to take advantage of jumping into the market and making a really exciting new presence and take advantage of a contract with Michael Jordan to really kind of take the center stage of basketball. And it would kind of be their sport for the most part. Fleer just, they kind of missed the boat in seizing it. They were in too comfortable of a spot, and the fact that they didn't create an Ultra set, at the end of the day, it wasn't really a problem in 1991 because, let's face it, the world is a better place that they didn't make a basketball set for the 91 year because those cards were pretty terrible. But because they weren't right there at the cusp, they weren't taking advantage of it, they kind of lost a little bit of ground. So 92-93, they were able to bring Ultra in and finally make the cards that they needed to make to restate their presence in the sport. And it was a crowded year because Topps jumped in, and they didn't jump in with just one or even two sets. They actually jumped in with 3 different sets in the first year. So it was 92-93 was quite a year in basketball. And Ultra was going to need to make a really big statement to stand out in that time, and fortunately they did. They did exactly that. The 92 Ultra baseball and football sets were lacking the high quality that they really needed to have. The pictures were a little fuzzy. The cards just weren't well enough made. In basketball, half a year later, they succeeded with that. They finally got the images to have the clarity that they needed, and so these cards came out great. They're not high gloss cards, they're actually medium gloss, which means these cards are more likely to hold up over the years than the high gloss cards from 93 would, and that's a benefit, in part because the cards didn't need it. These cards looked great. They had an aqua marble border down at the bottom with a gold foil stripe above it, and that was the perfect complement to these images. And so it really did a good job of showcasing and highlighting the player. The images stood out on all these cards. The cards looked really good, and it carried just the way that these cards needed to. And it was so strong that it was even able to surpass 92-93 Upper Deck. These were the cards of the year. So when Ultra finally did hit the market, Fleer made a very clear statement. They were here to play, and they were going to be putting out cards that were going to be competing head-to-head with Upper Deck. They succeeded with these cards. Even the card backs, while they're a little bit busy, they're busy in a great way. They've got a lot going on, but they have a really nice key design on the back. They have a couple of images. One's a really tight shot of the player, another is a full shot of the player. And while all this stuff could get kind of busy, it doesn't. Everything's clear. These are card backs that are fun to explore, and I think that these are actually among the all-time great card backs. They're a tremendous success. So the card front was successful, the card back was successful. This was a great card. They also had rookies, and the rookies did what the Ultra cards did, where they had a little gold foil flag that came down saying it was a rookie. Really don't need to do any more than that. And they had one subset. This was a 2-series set. Series 1 was 200 cards, Series 2 was 175, and Series 2 started off with a 20-card subset called Jam Session. Now, this is not the slam dunk competition. This is basically 20 players who are great at slam dunks, and they rank them 1 through 20. And so this is, again, it's not related to the slam dunk competitions. It's just a theme that they did, but it's a really cool theme. And the cards they're really kind of nice. You have a black marble border down at the bottom. Otherwise, the card's basically the same. On the back, it's not very well designed, but it does have an interesting little personal quote, either from the player himself or somebody else talking about the player. And that element is pretty cool. But Other than that, the cards, none of these cards really needed to be too much. This was a well-built set. It was just enough of what you needed, enough in the first series, enough in the second series, one subset, perfect. And they also had something interesting for these cards, which was autographs. Now, this isn't anything new for Fleer and Ultra. They like to do autographs primarily with their career highlights. And with the Scottie Pippen career highlights, they would. But they also did 3 cards from the main set. These are actually cards from the Jam Session cards, and it's Dwayne Coswell, Purvis Ellison, and Stacey Augmon. These are cards that are done in the same way the other autographs are done, so they have an embossed relief of the Fleer brand on the cards so that you can tell that it's a certified autograph. But it is unusual for the cards to come out of the set. So that was an interesting thing they did here. They also did a Series 2 send-away, which was 2 cards for the Jam Session, which is basically kind of a recap. It's 2 cards, each one with 10 of the players, so all 20 players show up among the 2 cards, 5 on the first side, 5 on the second, 5 on the third, 5 on the fourth. And the cards look really cool. These are not images from the actual cards in the set. They're individual images, but the way that the cards are built is a really fancy design that looks really cool. It's exactly what you would want from a send-away. So they were doing really well with this set. They also did inserts, as you can imagine, and starts off with, since I already mentioned it, the career highlights of Scottie Pippen. 10 cards, a couple of send-away cards at the end, and like I said, all the cards were autographed as well. They also had the All-NBA set, and this was first team, second team, and third team. These cards have kind of a blue-purple marble at the bottom, and otherwise they look pretty much the same. The back, well, the back doesn't look the same, but these are really pretty nice cards. They also have an All-Rookie Series set, and these cards have, it's kind of like a wall of TV screens behind. Unfortunately, all of the images in the back are the same as the image on the front, so the player doesn't stand out because he's kind of washed out by everything that's going on behind. It's a nice card, it's just you can't see the player. And that's the only disappointment with this. They also had an award winner set. This is a short set, and it has kind of a yellowish marble at the bottom. They're not as dynamic as the other cards. They're still nice cards. They're just, they're not as aggressive as the other card designs were. They also have a Playmakers set, and this one gets away from the main design. Basically, they have kind of a washed out tone over the background image with kind of like the sketches on a playboard. It's not too bad of a card, but it, again, isn't really dynamic. But for 92-93, it does have a really nice quality to its design. And then the set ends with a short Rejector set, and this is kind of a cartoony card. It's not too dynamic, but it's an okay card set. But that was basically what they did for the main set. They also had an interesting Jam Session cassette that was sold that came with a card. And this comes with a card that recaps the top 5 of the Jam Session cards from the set. So the players who were ranked not 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, their cards are reprinted here on, this is a normal size card. So all of the reprints of the cards are little miniatures fit into this card. It's kind of like the Sendaways. It's really kind of a neat card, but it's an interesting thing that they did, especially in terms of how it was released with a cassette. But the most unique thing about the 92-93 set was that Fleer, like I said, they kind of owned basketball cards, and they actually were the sponsor for the All-Star Weekend. And as such, they printed the tickets for all the events. And the ticket stubs were an opportunity for them to show off their card designs. And in this case, the 92-93 Ultra set was the set that they put on the designs. So this is a regular card right up at the top of the ticket, and then the ticket gets torn off, so at the end of the day you still have a collectible of the card. The gold foil is replaced by a really light tan color. Otherwise, the card is basically the same, but these are not cards from the set. In fact, you can tell because you can see that the marble at the bottom is really the Jam Session color marble. This is not like the regular John Stockton card. But it's a really cool thing that they did, adding a really interesting kind of collectible if you're able to find these. Finding them with the ticket torn off is a lot easier than finding them completely intact. But the way that they themed these cards was basically by whatever city the All-Star Weekend was happening in. And in this case, it was in Utah. So it's the Utah Jazz. That's what all the tickets are of. So that means that John Stockton and Karl Malone both have cards or ticket stubs from this set. So if you have the opportunity to find these cards, these are a really cool addition. In 93-94, they were able to improve the quality of the card design a bit. They went with a high gloss this time. They dropped the border at the bottom down a little bit and went with a peach marble for the treatment. They have more of a 3D quality to the boxes with the name. It's an improvement of the card design, and the cards do look a bit better. They're not that much better in terms of the integrity of the card design, but they are a bit of an improvement. Again, Series 1 is 200 cards, Series 2 is 175. The card backs this time are a little bit busier simply because they went with this big picture, and so the images of the player kind of get lost in it. But I do enjoy the fact that for these card backs, they have a standard court that they show that they change the color of the key for each team so it looks like the home team, even though the game itself is the Utah Jazz versus, I think, the Houston Rockets. Not sure who the team in the red jerseys are, but I'm pretty sure it's the Houston Rockets for every single card. So it is a great thing that they did with these 93 sets where they have the home team court color on the cards. So really kind of neat. The set has one subset, and that is the Dream Team 2 cards. So this is the follow-up to the classic Dream Team. These were not the Olympic players, these were for the World Championship. And these to me are probably the best, in my opinion, very clearly the best card designs for any USA basketball team set of any manufacturer any year. I love these cards. They're all horizontal. They have a really nice flag in the back. They have a great up-close shot of the player. They have a really good USA basketball logo in gold foil. Everything about the card front is just fantastically designed. The card back is a good card back. It's an insert-like card back, even though these are in the set, but not bad. And they did do a send-away for getting 3 additional cards. 2 of them were players, Reggie Miller and Shaquille O'Neal, and they also have a checklist card, which isn't really a checklist card. It's actually a team photo, a Photoshop team photo, and then on the back it's a key so you know who all the players are in the photo. And then they ended the sets with checklists, Series 1 and Series 2. But these checklists are the way I enjoyed doing checklists, where they actually have players in them. In this case, they have a player kind of ghosted in behind the checklist itself. It's the same player on the front and the back, and the 5 players are Robert Parrish, Gerald Wilkins, Jamal Mashburn, Joe Klein, and Tony Bennett. Not the singer, obviously. And so none of these checklists are really all that collectible. I mean, the Mashburn was almost a really collectible card. Wasn't quite there. He didn't have a strong enough career, but otherwise, they're okay checklists, but I always like it when they do that. But this is the mid-90s. It's heading into the mid-90s, but this is the mid-90s in Fleer, so we're going to be talking about a lot of inserts. And the first insert is All Defense. Now, the All Defense cards are they're kind of a light tone of an image, kind of washed out, so that they could have a cutout shot of the player superimposed on top of the image. They're pretty nice cards. I wouldn't say spend a lot of time looking at them, but they do look really nice. They're pretty rare, so they're a little bit tough to get. Then you also have the All-NBA, and the All-NBA again is first team, second team, and third team. These cards I like because they have a series of 3 images that are increasing zooms in of the player. And on the back, they have something very similar too. It's not a really dynamic card, but it's a fun card in that regard. And then they have the All Rookie series, and to me, this is a really impressive card. Again, it doesn't have a lot of dynamism, and I don't know what has ever really intrigued me about the cards, but I think it's the image selection. I think they just absolutely nailed the image selection, and the way that they did the logo for the All Rookie series, I think is a really good combination, the way that it all gets paired together. So to me, this has always been really kind of the one set I've most looked forward to collecting. They also have their All Rookie first team, and this is 5 players, and it's kind of a cartoony back. It's a pretty nice, slightly 3-dimensional back. It's not a great card. It's kind of a fun one, but it's one that's never really intrigued me, and I think it's because they just don't really focus on the player. The player kind of gets lost in the rest of the card. And then we have award winners, and this is basically just a foil card with a design that you can't really see because of the foil. I think it's kind of a waste of a card. It's, they tried, but didn't really come through. But fortunately, the next one, I love the next one. As much as I love the All Rookie Series cards, the nicknames to me are the most creative, the most inventive insert set in the whole set. And this is a great concept they came up with because I'm surprised they rarely do this. The idea that some players have nicknames that are really common. Like with Muggsy Bogues, we only know him as Muggsy Bogues. Then you have Sir Charles, who just has a classic nickname. And so they did a whole set, a whole insert set of these nicknames, which I think is a really fun idea that they came up with. So I've always been a really big fan of these. Then there's Inside Outside, and this is a card that it's a nice idea. It's got the dynamism in it. It's just not really showcased, and so the card kind of gets lost. It's okay. Then you have Jam Session, and Jam Session is where they played around with etched foil and really bright colors, and I think that the card is kind of dynamic and boring at the same time. I think that the design is a little bit too much. They got too much chaos going on. But the richness of the colors and the way that the light reflects is really fun. So I think that they got carried away and forgot to finish designing this card. It has a lot of potential and they just didn't really get anywhere with it. Then Power and the Key is kind of the opposite. Here they did do a good job designing the card. They just didn't make it rich enough. And so this, while very well designed, it doesn't have the pop out power of Jam Session. It doesn't have the distinct eye-catching quality that the previous set had. So, you know, they were close. They were pretty close, but these are both really fun cards. Then you have Scoring Kings, and Scoring Kings goes back to the foil, but here with the big lightning strike in the back, the foil actually works really well. So these cards they're really impressive cards, and they're very rare cards. These are expensive cards to get. Then you have Rebound Kings, and Rebound Kings is actually a surprisingly well-designed card. The problem is that in this set with so many really interesting inserts, this card design kind of gets lost in it. It's a cool card design that in any other set would really stand out. In this one, I don't think it does, but take the time to really look at it and appreciate it for what it is. And the set, of course, also has a career highlights, and this time it's Karl Malone. It has the main cards of him, it has the sendaways, and it has the autographs. And that was basically what they did. There's a lot of stuff in here, but this is a set where while the regular set looks great, and it's really fun, they were really getting carried away with inserts as well, and that's what was really fun to chase here. The inserts weren't quite as common in the packs as they would in 94 and 95, but for this year, you really wanted to chase them, and they were kind of rare. So definitely, if there was any one set of Ultra that was the set to pursue, this is the one, because it has enough rareness, and it has enough interest, and enough of a common occurrence of inserts, as well as the great card designs in Series 2 of the Dream Team 2 players. It has absolutely everything that it needed. It didn't have any parallels. It absolutely didn't need any parallels. So it was a lot of fun, but they were on fire. This was the highlight of Ultra. This was when they were at their height, 92 through 93. This was as good as it was going to get. When we get to 94, 95, they start to taper back. Well, they really taper back, but this was the glorious time. If you haven't had a chance to check these cards out, definitely do. Unfortunately, these cards can be very difficult to get due to the popularity that tends to follow Michael Jordan, but otherwise, they are great. So I'll be looking at 94, 95, and 95, 96 Ultra in another video. Definitely watch for that. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.